Come on, come on.
Good morning. At 9:30 on September 3rd, 2024. Welcome to the Board of Commissioners. Today, please join us in a flag salute and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. Pretty good room full of people today. We're always happy to see the people coming out to express their views on things. And the first view that we have today is actually not a debated agenda item, but a jail medical update, item 2A. Pam Lewis joins us to give us an update on the jail medical situation, and joined by Sheriff Gabe Fabrizio. Good morning, Sheriff. Good morning, Pam.
We meet again. I appreciate your support. Pam Lewis, RN and HSA, which is the supervisor of the administrative for the clinic, health supervisor administration, official title. Thank you for opportunity to serve our county. I really want to come and brag a bit. It's a closed building. People don't get to see who works there. There's not a deputy there that isn't outstanding. They're helpful to me. They think they're funny, which is their humor. I love their humor. I appreciate working with them. Administratively, we've got first the sheriff who's been to visit and see our cube. I appreciate his visit. The things that we have done is organized a little bit. We were without an administrator, so there was many paperwork things that hadn't gotten done. I'm working on them. I'm still learning the job. What I would like to say is we've been able to hire one mental health worker part-time that will be over Zoom kind of approach. And then we still have one spot open for more hours for a mental health provider that can help us out. We've got a lineup already. You know, we need that position if there's someone who wants to moonlight a little with mental health provider. I'd appreciate a phone call. The process has been great. I have 5 fabulous nurses that are good brains, good nurses, good critical thinkers, and with the deputies helping us out, it's been bumpy because we've been missing an administrator, but what a group to work with. It's been fabulous, and I thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate
And
what you're doing.
I'm going to run back with my radio in my pocket back to work. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Sheriff. All right, item 2B, request approval to utilize House Bill 4123 grant funds to pay for safety fencing at the Nancy Devereaux Center site. David Yields and Eric Shermer. Morning, Eric. Good morning, David.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. I'm the project manager with the Homeless Response Office of North End, Coos County, and City of Coos Bay, and I'm here representing my client, in this case, the Devereaux Center. I think we're all aware that the relationship of the Devereaux Center with the surrounding community has not been going very well, and what I am bringing before you today is the first in an attempt to correct that. So what I would like to let you know is that after several meetings, the Nancy Devereaux Center got a letter from the City of Coos Bay that says they hope that the Devereaux Center's desires to continue the necessary services in ways that reduce impact to the community and to work towards greater harmony. They are looking for specific visible and trackable improvements within the coming 30 days. And this was a meeting from Friday, August 9th. And number 1 on the list was exploring a fence or security for the property. We have, this letter also included a municipal code definition of nuisance and the enforceable actions as a result of being declared a nuisance for the Devereaux Center up to the possibility of losing a business license. So to cooperate with the community, we got 2 bids for building a fence across the front of the property to enhance security and to keep people off the property when the Devereaux Center is not open for business hours. And one of them was $33,735.24. One was almost $40,000, and the third contractor could not get a bid to us in time to make it for this meeting today. My hope is that you will approve the expenditure of 4123 funds, as you are the fiscal agent for those dollars, to pay for that lowest bid from West Coast Fencing, so that we can begin to make our community better this way.
All right. Okay.
I move we approve the Nancy Devereaux Center funding request of $33,735.24 for the construction of a cedar fence and gate system at their Newmark Avenue frontage, as approved by the HB 4123 Pilot Advisory Board, which was established by an intergovernmental agreement amongst Coos Bay, Coos County, and North Bend.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion on the board.
Nope.
I have a question for you, Eric. What is the, if we approve this fence and gate system, number 1, what's the estimated completion date? Number 2, what's the anticipated, what is the actual committed usage of that gate system by the Devereaux Center? In other words, what's their commitment as far as when the gate closes? Is anybody going to be camping inside that fence? Those are 2 questions. I might have more that come up.
Last time I talked to West Coast Fencing, which was at the end of last week, they said they can start the project mid-November and have it completed. He said about an 8-day project. So
Okay.
by the end of November is the best guess right now.
All right.
In terms of the second question, the intent is to close and lock the gate anytime the Devereaux Center is not open. It's posted business hours, which is, I'm sorry, I don't know right off the top of my head, but I think it's 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. or something like that. And that the only people that will have access through the fence are support services like garbage and police and fire and things. It is not the intent to make it a camping area.
All right. So you're pretty sure that there's not going to be anybody camping inside the fence when the gate's closed?
That is the intent of the fence. It's a 6-foot-high fence that can't have barbed wire on top, so when people climb over, it's the best we can do given the code we've got.
Right. Okay. All right. Any other discussion on the board?
No, sir.
Is there any discussion in the room?
Yes.
Okay, I saw Nancy's hand first.
My name is Nancy Brown from Coos Bay. I was just wondering, is this coming out of our county funds?
No, this is coming out of a state grant that has funded a number of homeless enterprises, but it has nothing to do with any county funds.
Okay, and then my second question is, if these people are so bad that they're helping, why are they putting up a fence to keep them out? Why do they keep inviting them into our community? I just thought I should ask.
Okay. I believe I saw Tom's hand second, and then I think Rob Taylor was third, if I got it right.
This sounds to me like a privacy fence for them to crawl over and do whatever they want to do in there without people monitoring them. I mean, it's ridiculous, it sounds to me like.
Okay. All right.
Why can't they say whether or not there will be no people in there? Yes or no? When we know they're gonna climb right over the fence, it's a no-brainer.
All right.
Rob Taylor from Bend, Oregon. I know the Devereaux Center during the daytime when they're feeding people who are hungry, people who are actually in need, who are in desperate situations. It's a good place. It's a very good place. However, I've seen what happens at night. I've worked with Matt Wilbanks, and I still work with people who patrol the area, and the number one problem is generated by the Devereaux Center and the enabling of drug derelicts and criminals. And these should be definitely separated from the homeless people who are actually being helped by the center during the day when they're feeding them. So I kind of have some of the I definitely have some of the concerns that Tom and Nancy were discussing, is that we got to make sure that this isn't really going to be a cover for people to climb over that thing and to do whatever the hell they want, and not anyone being there to see what's going on. I've been there at night. There's nobody there, and there's open air prostitution. I've seen drug use. I've seen drug ODs. I've seen criminal acts going on there, and this is something I didn't even have to go onto the property. I've never been on the property. I've stood on the sidewalk and watched this stuff while I was on patrol, and this is something anyone can see. So the thing is I'm glad this is coming out of the committee money for the homelessness, but I do know that North Bend is pulled out, and I'm kind of curious if the county now and Coos Bay are gonna be on the hook for that $1 million grant that we just gave out. I don't know what the ramifications are on that.
No, the North Bend retraction was simply 2 board positions, as well as the management of the monies. So there's been a change where Coos Bay, the city of Coos Bay, has become the fiscal agent for the funds.
Right.
And this was by agreement of the mayor and the city manager. North Bend had some issues that I actually spoke at length with the mayor about, and I don't really have any additional concerns.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just don't want us to be on hook for a fence, you know what I mean?
No, there's
that's
no
a
way that can
concern.
happen.
Yeah.
My understanding is that North Bend is replacing their membership on the board. Is that not correct, Eric?
That is correct.
And-
Okay.
And
As
also
far
that,
as, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, finish up your question.
As far as Mill Iron, the city manager, and the mayor, they're gonna have 2 other people on there?
Yes.
Would that be
And-
representative of the council?
I don't know who it's gonna be,
Interesting.
Rob, but they are intending to replace the 2 members that currently represent them with 2 others.
Fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see
And I
that
have another, the city of Coos Bay has asked them to do this.
Yeah.
And I would suspect, Tom, in response to your concern that people would be climbing over the fence and just being able to do the things we're trying to not have done
Right.
in hiding. I would expect that the city would enforce that. The purpose is to keep that from happening. And
How are they gonna do that?
put well, they have keys, they can enforce rules and private and property rights.
if I may interject on that point, Commissioner, the Devereaux Center does have cameras out there, and I assume, and we'll follow up on this assumption with a confirmation that that once the fence is up, that those grounds are not to be occupied by anyone. And if there is somebody who climbs the fence, that will be seen on camera, and that will then be an enforcement
Punishable
issue,
offense.
because that's obviously trespassing.
But when you can't enforce no laws. and-
Well, the trespassing
and it
law,
costs the police how much money to go on every call, they gotta go on and on and on and on.
right,
You're-
okay, and I'll address some of that in further comments when
And
Rob's
I'm
done.
not sure, and Tom, no offense, I'm not sure if that's even gonna deter people from doing what they do, just having a fence there, number one.
Just changes the
Number two,
location.
I wanna point out that the reason the city's doing this is because, like this gentleman just said, they called it a nuisance, not my words, theirs.
Right, right. So, Madam Treasurer has some words to share with us.
I
Good
just-
morning, Megan.
Wanted to make one correction. The county is the fiscal agent of these funds, not Coos Bay. And I
no,
think-
it was North Bend abdicated something to Coos Bay. Can you?
Yes, that
So I
was
just
House Bill
wanted to-
$5019. That was a separate grant from OHCS.
Oh,
That
yeah,
North
okay.
Bend was fiscal agent for. Now, or almost, City of Coos Bay is taking over fiscal agency of that grant.
Okay,
The county has always been the fiscal agent for
All right.
these $4123.
my mistake on that. Regardless, the county doesn't end up financially on the hook for the fence in any scenario because that will be paid out of those funds. All right, is there other comment in there? Oh, yes, Elmer.
Elmer Yardley from North Bend. We're talking about this, and we're trying to keep the homeless out of the Nancy Devereaux Center, which is for 8 to 3 now. And I'm gonna tell you, they're probably gonna jump the fence. Razor wire is good. I'm sorry I didn't hear the whole thing, why we couldn't do that. Why can't we electrify that? And, okay? And that'll keep them out. It'll keep the police from coming out there. And the Nancy Devereaux Center will probably be like Mexico right now, looking better than the neighborhood.
Thank you, Elmer. Any other comment in the room? Yes, Drew.
Howdy, Drew Farmer, Coos Bay. So clarifying on North Bend's aspect, it was actually the grantee that requested that fiduciary be transferred to Coos Bay. So it wasn't as much a matter of them pulling out of being the fiduciary, it was that it was at the grantee's request due to delays. They do have a 2-page trespass list at the Devereaux last time I saw. That needs to be enforced, obviously. We have a property watch program in Coos Bay that could be utilized by them. They've had recent changes in their board to a substantial degree. I've had board members of theirs reaching out to me on how they could improve operations, how they could utilize grants in different and new ways to improve their security. That's been a problem up to this point, but I believe they misunderstood the clause in their grants. They all say low barrier, but they also indicate that the safety of staff and clients is paramount. So I believe they could be making better usage of their funds to provide security, and members of their board have reached out to me now that they've had new board members. A big portion as well of looking at the fence has been from people in Empire requesting to mitigate the appearance of the Devereaux. Fence in that aspect is a way to do so. It blocks the view. People are gonna commit crimes, people commit crimes everywhere. They're gonna jump the fence, they jump lots of fences. When I ran Orca, we had people jump the fence and they actually cut the catalytic converter out of one of our industrial trucks. Criminals exist, we need to catch criminals and prosecute. And, yeah, real quick, that about covered.
All right, any other comment in the room? Okay, so we've heard some concerns expressed, and I really do, I take those to heart. It seems to me that the installation of this 6-foot fence around the property really has more positives that it will effect than negatives. And while it's true that someone could climb over the fence, they may set up ladders and try to have a whole encampment in there. But the existence of a fence is a much more clear delineation of what is trespassing and what is not. And it's, to me, it seems, and I don't know, maybe the sheriff would give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down on this view, but when there's no fence versus when there is a fence is a different situation. If you climb a fence to occupy and trespass a property, is that a more clear delineation that would be more actionable, Sheriff?
It's gonna be the same as far as the crime is concerned, it's trespassing, regardless.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, all right. Regardless, it does seem to me far less convenient if you're trying to do prostitution for drugs or any of that business to transport everything over that fence to conduct it in that space. Doesn't seem like it makes any sense. And it seems to me that a couple of apprehensions based on that would probably mitigate that issue to some degree. So I am coming down on the side that it seems like more good than bad would result from having this fence in place. Tom, you had a follow-up, sir.
I was just wondering, why couldn't it be a cyclone?
Why couldn't it be a cyclone fence instead of a cedar wood fence so that you can see through it? Well, all right, yes, Eric.
That would be good for the police too if they had to.
Sure, I understand the issues.
Is cyclone fence chain link?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Because the Coos Bay city codes require cedar in this instance. The only way we could do chain link is to do a temporary fence that has a maximum use of 4 years, and then we'd be having to replace it with a cedar fence. And so the board of Devereaux doesn't want to pay for a fence twice,
Right,
or go through this process twice.
right,
And so we're just complying with the city codes.
right. So obviously there are some benefits that would go along with a chain link fence, but frankly, with the fact that the cameras are in there, that we can review that and see what's going on. I'm sure people will go by with their cameras, and it's a pretty easy reach over the fence to see what's going on in there. I'm sure that will happen, and we will be apprised of any nefarious activities that are continuing there. So, and frankly, I think the wood fence is certainly more attractive than the cyclone. And, I don't really want to look in there myself, unless it's to see, bad stuff that shouldn't be going on and expose that. So, with all of that, I'll ask one more time if there's any further discussion on the board. No, we're set? Okay, I got one more in the room. Elmer?
Okay, so if we're trying to keep them out, don't you think these people that have been living on that property overnight won't go somewhere else in the community?
Well, of course they will, Elmer. That's
So
true.
everybody puts up a fence.
This is always the issue. This is the persistent issue. This fence doesn't fix the homeless problem. It doesn't fix the underlying issues of drug addiction, family breakdown, and deception that absorbs so many of these people into this destructive life. It doesn't change any of that, but it does address one specific issue that's been brought to us time and time and time and time again. And this is a mitigation. That's the way I see it. And we may disagree, but that's my view. Okay, without further ado, we'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
There you go, Eric. You have your fence.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Item 2C, contract with Alyssa Deers, DBA Oregon Coast Mind and Body LLC, Health and Wellness. Mr. Geels, how are you today?
Very good, Commissioner. Morning, everybody.
Very well.
This is really a contract extension. We've been using Elise Deer, who's a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, to help provide psychiatric services for folks at the crisis center. She helps fill in and help facilitates admission to that center. So this is really just a contract extension about what we've had in place for a bit of time already.
Okay. Motion?
I move we approve and sign the contract with Elisa Deers, doing business as Oregon Coast Mind and Body LLC.
Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion on the board? Any discussion in the room? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you, David.
Thanks, David.
Item 2D, County Clerk CTCL, that's the Center for Tech and Civic Life, grant approval and resolution 2408142B. Madam Clerk.
Good morning. So this is, just as you read it, we discussed it in our meeting last week, but for the audience's purpose, it is a grant of $50,000 for the Center for Tech and Civic Life to be used for the 2024 elections. The grant funds must be used exclusively for the public purpose of planning and operationalizing reliable and secure election administration in Coos County. In 2024, the purpose of the grant is to be a supplement to our current budget. The grant is a 2-page grant, which I provided to you. And the only obligation we have is to provide our receipts. So there are no strings. We plan to use the grant for security at the door for the 2 weeks leading up to the election. We may have security right along with our main courier, the courier that picks up throughout the election. We would like to install a camera in the elections office where we do signature verification. And we have some office equipment needs that we would like to be able to use the grant for as well. Depending on what those items all end up being, there is talk of maybe doing a video that shows the operations of an election to be used for public education. Some of the other counties have done that, and I've reached out to Grant County to find out. They have theirs, and it is on their website. It's a video that they made during one of the elections to show the process. And so I reached out to them to find out who did theirs. It's very well done, and to find out cost, but that would be determined based on the cost of the other items that I mentioned, and if we had funds left over. It all does have to be spent by the end of the year.
I move that we approve and authorize the chair to sign Resolution 2408142B, which in turn approves reception of a grant, $50,000 grant from the Center for Tech and Civic Life to be used for to be used in the elections office.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion on the board?
Like I said last time, I'm not in favor of this. But I pulled up the main website page for this Center for Tech and Civic Life. And it says it's time to push our democracy into the 21st century. Well, we're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. Number one is, number two is, my personal opinion, they are trying to push something towards socialism or something like that by using this term democracy. Thank you.
Julie, I have a question about the camera that you intend to install at the signature verification station. Would that camera be mounted in such a way that the computer screen can be seen as well through that camera, or would it be from the back, only showing the back of the monitor and the face of the person verifying the signatures? What would be the positional aspect of that camera?
The camera would be in the room. It would be in the left corner of the room. It would not show, it would not zoom in on the screen, no.
All right. So in other words, the camera would be able to determine whether people are in the room at the stations, who those people are probably, but there would be no verification on that camera that what is being seen on the screen is being correctly transposed into that verification data input. Is that correct?
The people who are doing signature verification are trained to do signature verification. We do it by individuals instead of by computers because that's what people tend to want in this community. So we are training our employees, part-time employees, to signature verify and full-time employees to signature verify. Are you questioning whether they're doing their job?
I'm sorry, but I asked you a question and you didn't
I'm
answer it.
asking for a clarifying question.
Okay, my question, I'll restate it. Is the camera orientation going?
I've already answered that question. It does not show the screen.
Excuse me, but you haven't answered this question. Just because I began the phrasing of the second question the same way the first one did.
Excuse me, sir.
doesn't-
Go ahead, repeat the question.
Thank you for that permission to repeat the question, Madam Clerk. Will this camera show only the people who are in the room without having any visibility of what the actual process is? Is that what I understand correctly?
That is what you understand correctly, as I answered before.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
So, my problem is that the Center for Tech and Civic Life was grotesquely involved in the manipulation of the 2020 presidential election.
That's an opinion.
And that is, all right, we'll have order in the room. Thank you very much. If you want to speak, if you want to speak, everyone in the room has the right to come up and speak, and we never cut that short. I've been called the most liberal chair that there has been in a long time in terms of public comment. In terms of public comment, ma'am, if you want to sit there and act like a 3-year-old and gag yourself, you can do that. That's your prerogative.
Do you have further questions for me, sir?
I don't believe I do. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a
So,
question, Julie.
Yes.
Yeah.
please, go ahead.
What other information is the person that's approving or verifying a signature aware of at the time he or she is making that verification?
So we receive ballots and they are scanned into the computer system in one step, and then they come back through and we do a signature verification. The envelopes are still sealed, and the person who's doing the signature verification has access to the person's signature on file. If we see that signature and then, we have a question about whether it's correct or not, then we are able to open up past signatures that are in the system and see if one of their signatures on file does in fact verify. So, and then if it doesn't, there are many codes we can put in based on why they didn't sign it as a code, or signatures don't match as a code. And then people do receive notice if their signature doesn't match, and they do have a time period in which they can come in and rectify that.
To make sure, I'm not sure I stated my question correctly. Does the person making the signature verification know how the voter voted at the time of the verification?
No, the envelopes are still sealed at that time.
That's what I heard you saying.
Mhm, yes.
Good.
And once they go through the signature verification, then they get transferred into the tabulation room, which case then we would go through the opening process. And then there's another process that separates the envelope from the ballot itself as well, so that they don't have a connection.
Another question. My understanding was that our county council, who is not able to be here today, was going to look at the agreement and see if there was anything in that agreement that imposed conditions upon us other than buying certain amount of.
In my conversations with county council, we reviewed grant, and the grant only states that we would provide our receipts as to what we purchased.
Good.
Um,
So there's no strings attached
there are no strings attached.
to the grant. Thank you.
All right, any other discussion on the board?
Again,
Just a
our
note
county
about,
is,
just a note about council, he signed off on this, so.
He did.
Okay,
yeah, just double checking, make
Commissioner
sure
Sweet?
everyone knew. Yeah, we don't always agree with the philosophies of people who fund different parts of our county government. But we accept their money because it goes to the greater good. We are in dire financial condition. And having $50,000 available to buy things that make our clerk's office a safer office, to be a more efficient office, is very important to me. And so therefore, I'm gonna vote yes on this. That's all.
right. Anything else, Commissioner Main?
I just have to laugh because Commissioner Sweet voted against the $120,000 I suggested we give up on our salaries. So, you know, there's both sides of that, apparently.
Any discussion in the room?
I don't
All right,
understand how that relates.
I saw Katie's hand first, and the rest of you was all a blur. I'm sorry. We'll do it as we do it. Good morning, Katie.
Hi, Katie.
County Commissioners, thank you for being here. Thank you for accepting. My name is Katie Eyman, it's spelled E-Y-M-A-N-N, and I'm from Bandon, Oregon. And I just want to say I'm really impressed with the effort by you to consider a grant for increasing election security, which I think would be very important to you. We know that we have secure elections, given the allegations in the past. As Commissioner Sweet pointed out, we're in tight budget times, so it makes sense to get extra money. And if you wanted to get a camera that focused on the screens and the information, so you could verify that the verification process was going as expected, that there wasn't any chicanery in that, you certainly could ask the clerk to have that kind of screen. I've seen that process, that there's a public viewing area in Multnomah County where you can go in over and there's a room above the room where they're verifying, and you can actually see the signatures on the screen because they're very big, and you can see the voter registration card, and you can see the comparison that they're doing, and they're trained by the state police to identify any forgeries, and they've been very effective at that. So I think if you wanted to see that kind of process, you could, with this $50,000, there might be enough money in there to get that kind of camera, because we don't want any lack of integrity with our election system. So I'm supportive of getting this grant, so you have the money to make sure we have a free and fair election. And as to the funder, I just would point out that Mark Zuckerberg of Meta and Facebook said recently, on some level as an American, it's hard not to get kind of emotional about the spirit of Donald Trump. And he said this after the assassination attempt. That spirit and that fight, I think that's why a lot of people like the guy, and indicating he also loves his spirit and fight. So, while I know this is not a grant from Mr. Zuckerberg personally, Meta has made every effort this year not to get involved in politics, but they are doing this thing to secure what I think you know is very important: election integrity and election security. So I hope you'll put aside your concerns about the source of the funding, as the county council has reported, no strings attached, so you can spend the money to increase election security any way you want, and I hope you do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to comment on that, we do allow observers to come in and observe signature verification process.
Okay. David had his hand up next.
Morning, Commissioner. My name is Dave Jennings. I live in Coquille. I urge you strongly to accept this grant. Before proceeding further, I would like to say that even though I vehemently disagree with Chairman Taylor on many issues, I have really enjoyed the fact that he has courage and protects public involvement and public participation in these meetings. And that I would think it would be good if the audience responded to that by participating rather than speaking out of turn, because I think that does distract from the process. I think the important thing to focus on here is again the fact that there are not strings attached to this grant, and this is money that the county could use, and I would find it deeply disappointing or even shocking to think that in the fiscal situation that we're in, that the county would refuse something like this that could help improve the election. I understand some of the philosophical points that have been made, for instance, by Commissioner Maine. I do think that many people believe that this country is a democracy. I think probably a more accurate term would be to call it a democratic republic, but I don't see that as really a relevant issue to the question here about whether we accept the money or not. I think it's important that we try to focus on the things that we're unified on, and my understanding is we think we're short of money, and we would definitely like to see new sources of money. Now, Chairman Taylor can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I've heard him say on many occasions that he has faith in the integrity of the clerk as an individual elected official and of her office. And I think when you have an application that you can get money without any strings attached, and you have faith in the clerk and in her employees, that it just doesn't make any sense at all to reject that money. I must be honest, I think that Commissioner Maine is a man of great intelligence and depth regarding the county. I'm disappointed about his apparent reluctance to give an independent elected official money to spend as that official thinks is wise. I know as assessor that Commissioner Maine, for good reason, is very upset when the Board of Commissioners interfered with his efforts to run his office. A few people here may be aware, maybe they're not, that years ago when there had been budget cuts, that Commissioner Maine wanted to close the assessor's office that he was in charge of for certain periods during the day because he felt that'd be the more efficient way to run his office. And he even wrote a letter to the World that I happened to look at last night, in which he made a good and cogent case about why he thought that made sense. Now, somebody at the time could disagree with that, but Commissioner Kane at that time was the independent elected official, and I was just shocked when the commissioners responded by saying if you didn't keep the office open, they're going to take the doors off of the assessor's office. Now, fortunately, it didn't come to that, but one of the things that the commissioner did that I thought was way out of line, even if possibly it was technically true legally, they sent a individual memo to all of the employees in the assessor's office basically saying, you employees work for us, not for the assessor, and you're going to follow the instructions that we give you, and if you don't do that, you can be disciplined up to and including termination. And so therefore, I must be very honest in saying I'm very disappointed that Commissioner Maine in this particular case would not trust an independent official who, at least the chair of this board, and hopefully the whole board, believes has integrity and runs an office with employees that have integrity. So I'd strongly urge Commissioner Maine and hope that Commissioner Taylor would join him in voting for this and that the board would be unanimous on this. There are all sorts of issues you could raise about the Center for Tech and Civic, why. Some of these issues are litigated during the 2020 elections. The Federal Election Commission didn't find that they'd done anything wrong. There are all sorts of individual court cases. I can recall some from Pennsylvania and Texas. No court found that there was anything that they were doing that was illegal or wrong. I just mentioned that in passing in case people do take seriously this idea that they're a nefarious organization. I really don't know exactly what they are. I know very little about them. But again, the thing to emphasize is that this money has no strings attached. It's going to an office that the Board of Commissioners, as far as I know, has full confidence in, and to an elected official who the Board of Commissioners, at least in the past, has said they believe has integrity. Ms. Brecky was elected by a big margin in the primary of 2022 to be the clerk, which means that she is the elections officer for this county. And the Board of Commissioners was not elected to run the elections office. So I would find it deeply disappointing and even shocking if you did not allow her to apply for this grant, receive this money, and fund it based on her discretion. And I would urge you to do that. Thank you for your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Sure. David?
Thank you, Dave.
As I stated last meeting, I fully support our county clerk. I do not support this group.
And Commissioner, I understand that that's your right. You may well have good reasons for feeling that way, but I don't think that that is relevant to this issue. Appreciate your expression of what you think, but
We could go on forever.
yeah, we could go on forever about whether we're a democracy or not, whether we're a republic or not, on and on and on. The issue here is whether the county's gonna get $50,000 and it's gonna go to election integrity. And I really, really, pretty please ask you to vote yes on that, because I do think that's the right thing to do.
Pretty pleased, that's an official.
That's an official designation.
Thank you, David.
Okay, thank you.
Next, the next hand I saw was this lady right here. Yes, you, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Rawlings. I live in East Side or Coos Bay, Oregon. I would like to apologize for my public statement yelling bullshit from the back of the room. I'm sorry, that's not respectful, and this is my first commissioners meeting in a long time. I believe I heard two commissioners state that there was some falsehood about the 2020 election results, and I just have to dispute that, and I think it's not proper for you as public representatives to pervasively use this lie from 2020. And of course, the suggestion for this money for security for our election is very important, because the integrity of our elections is very important. The note that it's without strings makes it a no-brainer. So thank you very much. Apologies for my outburst, and please, in the future, do not spread lies from your seat. Thank you.
Hang on, ma'am.
Yeah,
I think it was only one commissioner.
I wasn't sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right. I saw, okay. Yes, ma'am.
Karen Crouch, Lakeside. Thank you, Commissioner Sweet, for speaking the truth. That anytime someone wants to give you money and there's no strings attached, we should be all for it. Election integrity is important, and I would think all of you should agree on that and give her the ability to do her job even better. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, who's next? I see Nancy's hand was the next I saw.
Comment. I mean, I know that my name's Nancy Brown, Coos Bay, and I understand that the 50 grand would be great. And I know they say there's no strings, but money has never been money for nothing and chicks for free. I mean, come on, I don't believe they're giving us the money just because. I mean, I'm sure she's doing a great job at her, you know, what she does. I just think the money's gonna have strings, and I know, I've heard that Zuckerberg is pushing for windmills, and I am totally against that, and I have another statement later about that, but thank you.
Thank you.
John Jones
Right.
back there. The guy in the plaid, John Jones.
John Jones. I'll get you, Jim.
I'm John Jones.
Behind
This
John.
gentleman's had his hand up, I believe. Go ahead.
All right, then we'll reverse that. Jim, and we'll get you second then, John.
Jim Bennett, Mandan. You know, right around nowish, I would be reticent to be really strong about stating our election integrity. Because as we're all going to see over the course of the next 90, 120 days, our election integrity is going to be more than called into question. And I'm taking little bets on that one too, by the way. we can square up around the first of the year. A lot of the improprieties aren't so much going on in our clerk's office. The difference between ballots and legitimate votes is a vast one, right? Also, there was just a formal complaint filed against our United States Postal Service, which is, you could call kind of a captured operation that was complicit in the election theft of 2020. The details of which are going to be laid bare for all to see here shortly. A lot of it also has to do with our agency of the state status and our charter, which, you know, makes our clerk a little more beholden to a captured Salem than it does the citizens of Coos County. But it's all going to change, and I support you guys in showing the courage to stand behind our rule book more than ever, because as you're going to see shortly, it's all going to get turned around. Oh, and it is a representative republic. The conditions under which we were accepted into the Union in the 1800s was predicated on our being a representative republic. That's not to say a left or right thing. It just means we're a representative republic. And it's important to remember, you know, the distinction. Okay, thank you.
In the words of the late, great Rush Limbaugh, words mean things. Thank you, Jim. Next up, Jim? Or John? John, sorry.
Jones. And before he gets started, John makes the best clam chowder I've ever tasted.
Well, that's an incorrect statement, Mr. Manning. My wife.
I know,
but
you were together.
And no offense to anybody else who makes great clam chowder, okay? Commissioners, thank you for inviting me here today. I am John Jones, and I'm a resident of Myrtle Point, Oregon. I live out in Bridge. Is there any other information I need to state other than that?
No, sir, that'll do.
Okay. Just a couple of things I'd like to say to you, friends. One is that I have known the county clerk, Julie Brecky, since she was very young. I have had nothing but respect for her and admiration for her integrity. And I was offended, Mr. Taylor, by your combative presentation to her and trying to bait her. So I just wanted to get that clear, that I think that her integrity isn't a question here. She's doing her job. Bob Main, you have reservations about this because of the source and all that you got it from. But I don't think there's anything substantial. You know, you have some questions, but that's not a reason for voting against something that I perceive as a common sense security issue for our county elections office. You know, this is a common sense kind of thing. The other thing that I'd like to say to you, Mr. Sweet, is that I appreciate very much you kind of, you know, making the statement about not looking a gift horse in the mouth, so to speak, with grants. I've had some experience with grants in my life, writing grants or helping to write grants rather, and applying for grants of different kinds. So if I may, I'd just like to bring all of this together into one statement that I trust our county clerk. I trust her integrity and I admire her integrity. And I think that she's just doing her job. And I'd like you to base your decision today on a common sense approach, not on innuendo, or as Mr. Taylor's kind of trying to say that, you know, this election in 2020 was a big fraud. You know, there's nothing to substantiate that, Mr. Taylor. All of the secretaries of state of every state in our union have said that, you know, fraud is not a big issue, right? But this particular proposal right here will help our elections office be more secure, both in terms of the voting records and also in terms of the security of the individuals who work there. So, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you, and I hope that you will dig deep in your own conscience, in your own heart, and vote common sense on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, sir, with the hoodie.
I'm Nick Phones, I'm in Coquille, somewhere around 6th generation Oregonian. Our elections have been just incredibly secure. I read on the envelope each time, I didn't memorize it, but there is, I think a $10,000 fine and some time in jail for doing a fraudulent vote. And I think that that is plenty of deterrent to obviously the mass majority. Word that I keep hearing coming up in this conversation is integrity. And there's hardly anything in this country that doesn't have a higher integrity than our elections. When they were put in question back in 2020, I think there were something like 60 challenges for the presidential election, and all of them failed. I bothered to look up a couple weeks ago about nations that are most democratic, and we were somewhere around 5th or 6th, and put over in the right column, we were a faulty democracy. I didn't bother to look into why they said faulty. I just kind of automatically agreed that we aren't as democratic as we ought to be. And it sounds like some people are in favor of something more than, something different than majority rule, democracy, elections. Same guy keeps saying, just vote for me. If when I win, this will be the last time you need to vote. So there's going to be a lot of jobs down the drain when we have an autocrat or a king or whatever he proposes to be. We only need one person in the government. That sounds pretty economical. If he was benevolent, he or she. I have been an observer here in Coos County in the elections office. I was thrilled. It's a place that you're going to stay all sober and so forth, but I was thrilled. I heard the conversations about a signature that was not maybe perfectly matched, and that they set it aside and they had the procedure for going through and checking it out, and they talked to people. I only remember one time, and it wasn't down here, that someone was convicted of fraudulent voting, and I think it ended up, the consensus one was that they were mentally ill, and that when people had left a selection blank, they filled in what this person thought they should have put in. And like I say, I don't know the outcome of it, but that is what came out in the hearing that I guess you just didn't want to see a vote wasted. I don't want to see votes wasted either. Like for president, there's more than 2 choices. If people were fearless, they wouldn't be voting for either one of these that are in the Democratic and the Republican parties. Because they want someone who is going to follow our laws, like the Leahy law that says that we are not going to support entities, nations, military organizations, whatever, that violate human rights. Well, we are the biggest in assistance to Israel, that by all accounts is violating civil rights. That would be, and most people are just afraid of who is running for president in the 2 parties. If they voted for what they wanted, it wouldn't be for either of them. That's all.
Thank you.
Questions?
No, sir. Thank you. Right. I've got one hand in the back row there, sir, with the striped shirt. Yes, you.
Good morning, commissioners.
Morning.
This wasn't why I was here. I wanted to talk about bike paths, but I just wanted to say thank you, and this is low hanging fruit.
I do need your name and residence.
Dean Lundy, Empire up the street from the Devereaux Center. Dean Lundy, rhymes with dummy. I just wanted to commend this nice gal for doing her job. Like I say, I just found out this is low-hanging fruit. It's $50,000 to make our elections better. The nice county clerk said that there might be some a little sliver of the pie, as Commissioner Sweet says, for public education. I'd like to put in a word for the local radio station in Coos Bay called KJAJ. They're just teetering, and they put out PSAs. Remember to check that you're voting, and this and that and the other thing. I'm a Democrat, as most people know, but I lean right and I vote left. But I just wanted to commend and salute this public servant for doing a thankless job. I would promote just go ahead and let her have a little bit of money to do her job properly.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Marty? Yeah, I know.
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning,
Kurt,
Marty.
Band in Oregon, graduated high school in Bandon back in the 70s and spent 40 to 50 years traveling around the world doing high technology stuff. Ran stock market matching systems and basically ABC TV news and radio stations and so forth and so on. Anyway, first off, I'd like to start this off by saying I'm 100% convinced that the 2 people that are in our elections office are doing an impeccable job. They're doing the best job possible with the materials given. I've observed their work. I've interacted with them repeatedly. They're always helpful. They always try to do the best they can. And if there's any shenanigans going on with our elections, it's not through the 2 people running, or 2 people in our elections office. Now, I do have clerk issues, but that's not just Brecky, it's Murphy and Heller as well. I've had issues with the clerks as long as I've been trying to investigate elections, and I tried to get information such as the web activity logs and the election activity logs and the county ballot, or the ballot images to verify that what they say is true. If they really said our elections are secure and they're above board, they would welcome somebody coming in and saying, hey, go ahead and look at this stuff, and if you see something wrong, you let us know. But they would not allow me to look at it. They gave me corrupted data on purpose. So let me get to CTCL. The Center for Tech and Civic Life is an organization that was set up in 2020, or for the 2020 election, by Zuckerberg and funded with over $500 million. That's $500 million to influence elections. That's their whole thing. 85% of the money that they used in the 2020 election cycle went to DNC efforts, and that is proven out by their IRS 990 forms. These are the forms that they fill out that say, here's who we donated the money to. Zuckerberg's recent testimony to Congress and to Jim Jordan said they were swaying, not only did they sway the 2020 elections, but they used the Meta platform, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, to censor every one of their hundreds of millions of users. He said, I feel sorry about that. I'm sorry that I swayed the election. I'm sorry I censored people. Mea culpa. And I'm like going, great. Anyway, normally if a corrupt organization wanted to give the county a bunch of money with no strings attached, I'd say, go ahead, take their filthy lucre. If we could guarantee that it's only going to be used for causes that will help everyone and not just one side. Not really confident that that's going to be the case, so I emphatically say no. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Marty. Yes, ma'am, in the green. Yes, you.
Martha Greger, North Bend. I think we should stop talking about 2020 and just deal with getting this grant, which sounds wonderful, 50,000 no strings. Do you think that you were fraudulently elected?
I don't believe, I never said that I believe there is active election fraud that is affecting Coos County. I'm not saying that there hasn't been, and but to whatever degree there has been, I do not lay that at the feet of the clerk anyway. So no. Do you think? Are you saying that there is no election fraud? That election fraud has never impacted an election in the United States?
I'm not talking about the United States. I'm talking about Coos County and this grant. So I'm not going to debate anything nationally, or I just wondered if because of your comments, if you thought that you were fraudulently elected, or if there was something that you needed to reveal about our own safe county elections that you haven't revealed, or we should know. But otherwise, why wouldn't you be all for this?
Well, okay, since you raised the point, I'll go ahead and articulate for you one area of grave concern for me. In the 2020 election, the instances of adjudicated ballots saw an 8.5-fold increase from an annual average from an average of 350 to 400 adjudicated ballots to over 3,500 adjudicated ballots in the 2020 election. All of a sudden, in one election cycle, it had been constant all before that. I submitted a FOIA request to see the images of the adjudicated ballots. Lo and behold, we were drug out for almost 6 weeks. When I was told that those images were available and I came to pick them up, then all of a sudden they were not available because the hard drive housing those images had crashed. Whether it did or not, I don't know, but that was the story. And ever since then, there has never been an accounting of those ballot images, and why there was a 8.5-fold increase in the instances of adjudicated ballots in that one election. So when I take that back and I go all the way back to 2002, 2004, 2006, 2012, 2016, this litany of nationally influential Democrats claiming the election fraud. And then when that happens in 2020 and we go, hey, where are those adjudicated ballot images? This doesn't seem right. Then all of a sudden I'm called an election denier because I'm asking legitimate questions. So do I think that my election was illegitimate? No, absolutely not. I don't believe that at all. I believe that those election manipulations, there's a limited amount of energy, time, and availability to exercise. If one were to exercise a program, of a multifaceted program to influence elections, there's a limited number of races that you could apply that data to. Local races would not rise to that level anyway. I'm
just concentrating on this subject, this time and space.
No, you focused on my election.
I wanted to know if you thought your election was fraudulent because we're in this county and this would secure future elections.
Right.
So I wanted to know if you thought personally your election was fraudulent. Obviously, if it had been and you thought so, you would resign.
Right.
So I think that it was fine. So I don't understand. I don't. The 2020. It's not 2020 anymore. I just thought we should concentrate on this. And anything that secures this even more, our ballots, we should go for it.
And I would like to speak to the adjudication for just a moment if I could. You're welcome to come in and observe the adjudication process, and that goes for everyone. We did recently get a screen that actually does show the adjudication screen, and there is observers that have come in and witnessed that during our last election we had, and we're very happy to see it. So if you'd like to see the adjudication process, as I always have, I invite you to come in and observe that process. There is a process for that online as to how you sign up for that. And we also have a handout that explicitly explains adjudication process. I would like to also point out that anytime anyone writes in something like not any of these candidates or none, those things have to be adjudicated because they aren't a name. So the more that we have people writing in things like that, that increases the amount of adjudication that we do have to do. So I encourage you to witness the process and not just assume that was a fraudulent behavior because there was more adjudication.
And not taking. Yeah, okay.
So, Julie, that's great. Observation of the adjudication process, fantastic. Does that mean that we can also use that same system to view the adjudicated ballots from the 2020 election?
This is while they're being adjudicated.
Okay, so you don't have the capacity to go back and look at any files from the past?
That's not how the records requests work, no. This is during an election, you are able to come in and observe the actual process of adjudication happening. There's a screen and you're able to see our screen mirrored on a big screen TV.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, thank you. Elmer? Sorry, Arnie, I forgot about you. I'll get you next time.
No problem.
Morning again. Usually don't talk, but there's been some issues today that probably need to get out there. I volunteered for a few years watching that election. I do believe there's cameras already in there, aren't there?
There are cameras only in one room, not in the other room. So there are cameras in the room where we tabulate and open ballots, but there are not cameras in the room where we do signature verification. So that's where we would like to just add another.
I got to do that once, and volunteers sat over there, and the people who were checking the signature, now it's one person. I think integrity has been brought up here on both sides, and I believe in that. But some are saying if we do this here, that would make them more secure. Well, the thing is, we're basing it on that signature. okay? I never knew what was on that screen, so you can imagine what you're thinking. Watching a person could have been playing a game as far as I know, because you never got to see that screen or signatures. Camera faced over there might show the person doing that. But we need to make it safer, and I think in today's world, it's getting harder to prove you're you, and now we're going by a machine and a person trying to say, that's him, he's correct, that's Elmer Yardley. I know I'm Elmer Yardley. I think get away with the paperwork, that way you don't have the mail involved. I'm not saying your job's not important, but if we had like 3 or 4 people and a person comes in, integrity to me is know who you're voting for, what proposition you want, and you say it verbally. There should be nothing covered up here. Let's expose it and get the true vote. That's all I'm asking.
All right, thank you, Elmer. Artie?
Arnie Roblin from Coos Bay. I'm excited about being here, actually. It's been an interesting meeting. I would say that as the number of people pointed out, for me, respecting each other is singularly the most important thing. It has been my entire life, 32 years in the education system. A lot of the kids and people in the community were surprised when I came out and ran as a Democrat, because they had no idea what I was, because that wasn't any of their business. And I really believe in that, and I felt like treating every single person as respectfully as I could in everything I did, and it served me really, really well. So the original combativeness was a little frustrating for me, but I'm happy that it's worked to the place where it is now, and I'm happy people brought that up. I guess what I wanted to come and say was that county clerks are the strangest group of people I have ever had to deal with. When I was in the legislature, we were the legislature got frightened when the county clerks came to town. They have a lot of power in what they do, and they are very independent people. I didn't care if they came from my very conservative Eastern or my very liberal downtown people. They were one when they came to the legislature, and it was pretty remarkable, because their whole thing was, we are going to make sure this election runs, and we are going to be true to ourselves in making sure that it happens. As a legislator, I was on the Rules Committee, and we got all the elections issues came to us. We would get a list of about 100 people every year who died and voted. And we'd have to go through and check every one of them. Most of them, it was incorrect thinking, because John Smith, there's a lot of John Smiths, and they had the wrong John Smith. The John Smith that voted was alive. So we figured that out. There were at least 2 occasions when a person who had died did vote, and we would point that out. In our elections, you can send a ballot in ahead of time, and then there's time between that and the election, and certainly there were a couple people who died between the time they turned in their ballot and the time the election took place. They counted the ballot. So but we looked at all of that stuff, and we looked at how well did these people check signatures, and it was kind of amazing, actually, as people would come in and show us how impressive that system works in our state. So I'm pretty proud of this system and how it's working. As a person running for election, one of the things you have to do is get money to run your elections, and it's frustrating. I made a rule for myself, and I told everybody else, if people wanted to give me money, I would accept it. And it was hard for me at times, because tobacco would give me money, and my mother died because of the tobacco industry. So I had a hard time with that, but at the same time I said, okay, they're giving me money, therefore I can use that money, and I know my own integrity about how I'm going to vote. This money is not the thing that's affecting how I'm going to vote or what I'm going to do. I trust that's true of you guys. I mean, I really do. I think you get money. Otherwise, you'd have to give 50% of the tax money back, because about 50% didn't vote for you guys. So you didn't want them. Why would you take our money if you think that we're going to influence you? We don't influence you with our money. We give you the money to run our community and run our county. I appreciate that. That's where I come down on this particular issue. If you have a person who you trust, who has looked at it, and your attorneys have said, there is no influence on this, they want the receipts, that's all they're asking for. In our last election, I knew a number of people who volunteered at the elections office. Many of them were frightened and weren't sure they wanted to come back because the crowds that were outside the building, the other kinds of stuff, they felt very intimidated by being a volunteer in our community, which was shocking to me because that has not been the case in the past. So I think we do have an issue that we have to address, and that is, how do we make good, honest citizens who want to volunteer and make our system work? How do we make sure that they feel comfortable coming in here to do that work? If we have a person or organization wanting to give us $50,000 with no strings, and I trust our attorneys to look at that and make sure it's no strings, that's going to say, you take this money and use it the way you think makes it the safest for your community. I can't imagine why we wouldn't do that. The security at the doors, really important for those people that are walking in every day, volunteering to do the work in the clerk's office. Having the cameras, I think, has been a big cost. You can watch the ballots come in, you can watch them, you can see that people can't manipulate the ballots because of the cameras that we have. We've gotten better and better at doing that, but making sure that people understand how the system works by doing an educational program, by letting people come and observe, all of those kinds of things, and making it safer is really important. So, Bob, I understand where you're coming from. There were a whole bunch of groups that I didn't really agree with very much, but at the end of the day, in order to get your message out, in order to do the things that we need to do as a community and a place, we need to accept those resources that don't have strings attached, because that was the biggest thing I would say. The only string you'd have with me is I'd let you come into the office so we could have a conversation. Didn't mean I'd ever agree with you, but I was going to give you that moment to have that conversation. Here we have a situation where an organization, do I trust them? No. But would I take their money so that we can make sure that we trust our system better? Absolutely, I would. So I hope you'll rethink those situations, put aside those other big issues with regard to where they're going to do stuff, and then look at how can we in our county be respectful of all of our community members by making the environment safe so that people can do their work. So I encourage you to accept this and move on and let Ms. Bradley do her work. Thank you very much.
So do you remember, I was in Salem one day and you were there in the legislature, and the AOC executive director said to me, do you know they're voting on this bill today? And I'm, what? And he explained what it was, and I said, well, Coos County needs to be included. So he and I went over to Capitol, talked to you, even though we don't always agree on things.
Not always.
Of course. And you immediately, at the last possible second, got Coos County included in that bill.
Yep.
Yep. It was cool.
It takes people to communicate in order for it to work.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely agree with that. And my job as a legislator was to represent this area.
Yeah.
Actually, it was the whole coast. I'll tell you, when you have to get elected from Charleston to Tillamook, 3rd Street, it's a lot of driving. It's a big area, and it's difficult to get to all those places, but it's a beautiful park, so I enjoy doing that. But you're right, no, I mean, things happen at the last minute. I'm happy AOC was on top of that and made that happen. So I'm just saying, think about, separate where it's coming from who's actually going to use it and do it, because the right things can happen with other people who I don't agree with this money.
Okay.
So thank you.
Bob?
Rob Taylor from Coos County, and following protocol, I do have to make a few statements about a couple of the last speakers. And Arnie Roblin, boy, I'll tell you what, I can go up to Salem right now, and there are Republicans who won't let me in the office. And maybe that's a good thing, I don't know. But Mr. Roblin would always allow me to sit in his office and talk to him. He was always very approachable. He He was always easy to talk to, and like you said, we don't always agree, but that's the thing, you know. We talk and we learn from each other. In fact, I prefer to talk to someone who I disagree with, because there are a lot of things I don't know, and until I know them, I don't know how to make a decision on that. And that's why this is why your committee, your commission is so good and better than any other county that I've ever been to, hands down, is because of this right here. What we're doing right here should be done everywhere. I drove all the way over to Douglas County, and they wouldn't allow me to talk on the windmills that affects them. They wouldn't allow me to talk because they only allow people to talk on what's on the agenda. You don't, and you don't put such strict timelines on it. I always give the county clerk more than 3 minutes. I ask that, please, always give her more than 3 minutes, because she's an elected official, and I think she has earned that over anyone else in this room who's not elected. So I would always ask that you do that, and Julie has done a wonderful job. I have no complaints with her. In fact, we got into an argument on the podcast over who was right and wrong on the submission of that advisory question. In the end, we all agreed Julie followed the letter of the law. We all agreed with that. And Julie wasn't even there. We didn't even need her. We came to that conclusion ourselves.
That's true.
And thank you, Julie, for responding to my email, because I appreciate that. She wrote out the timeline. In fact, I used that, Julie, on the show to show you did everything correctly. And that was beautiful. Thank you. And we have never said anything about there being corruption in the county clerk's office.
Not
that
one
was
time.
never our intent. We have a lot of questions because of a lot of anomalies. Now let's get to this grant. If this was coming from Trump, or if this was coming from the Republicans, I'd be standing up here telling you, don't take it. It looks funny to me. It just looks funny to me, and I think it's going to look funny to the voters. It's going to look funny to the voters because when we get out of this room, no matter what everyone says, they're going to say the county commissioners took Zuckerbucks. We know this because we know the reputation of this nonprofit. And so I'm opposed to the tax that you have on the ballot. So I should be telling you, take that grant money, because I know it's going to automatically make that ballot measure fail. It's going to make that tax levy fail if you vote for this. I can guarantee you that. And I should be telling you to take the money. I'm asking you not to take the money because of the impression that it gives taking this type of money. I wouldn't take money from the devil. I wouldn't take money from the Hitler. And I think that it is important that we know. And once again, I wouldn't take money from Trump. I wouldn't take money from the Republicans. I don't trust them bastards any more than I trust any of the others in politics. So this is just something you're going to have to think about when you're making this decision. If you don't want the ballot tax to pass, put it on. Go ahead, vote for it. If you want to make that ballot pass have a little bit, or the tax levy have a little bit better chance, you may want to not take this money this time. So that's what I see you weighing. So, oh, I love my buddy. That's my #1 fan out there. If anyone,
I thought that was my #1 fan.
I thought it was my #1 fan. Damn. So I just want to thank you all for these hard decisions, because it is a hard decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Anybody else? That hand, I can't see you back there. Your hand. Yeah, hey, Mary. Hi.
Mary Murphy, Allegheny. I have a way you can save money. You can hand count for 75% less than what you're doing with the machines nowadays.
Thank you. Okay, yes, ma'am.
I'm Natalie Ranker from North Bend. I'm in agreement with accepting this money. I can understand your feelings I did not understand the sarcasm that came from, but, and I think there's no place for that at council meetings. But as long as there are no strings attached, I know of people who were, and it wasn't just entering the office to count ballots, it was literally on the ride home last year that they were menaced. And we have a problem here, and we need to protect the people who are counting the ballots, and we need to protect free and fair elections. And I think accepting this money will aid that. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom?
Tom Brown, Coos Bay. What's the money gonna be used for? Exactly, buying a camera, what's that, $1,000?
It's going to be used for door security during the election.
So more security to
It's
hide
gonna-
more stuff, or?
Security at the door would just be, for 2 weeks during the election, people would have to, they would be going through a metal detector at the front door.
But that was there last year.
Right, it wasn't, but there's no funds for it this year, so this would be to fund it this year. It wasn't there last year, it was during the 2020 election.
Yeah.
Only during the major election.
That's what I meant, last election.
So yeah, it would be that, and it would also be, a camera in the one room that doesn't have it at this time
How much would that cost?
Well, I have a email out for bid on, or for cost on that. And then it would be for, we'd like to change the lock on the door to the elections office. And then we have some office equipment. We'd also like to look into pricing, an educational video that explains the election process.
Well, I think Zuckerberg's a criminal. From the letters, what he wrote. And I think it's a bad thing to take money from such people. The guy has no integrity. The big tech, they censor everything we say. They're just bad people. They're against free speech. They're not for this country. They're the ones destroying this country, destroying our Constitution. They're bad people. Why would we take money from them? And I mean, a camera, how much is that, $1,000? I don't know how much it is to have a guy sit there watching the metal detector or whatever, but I mean, it seems like we're being conned, to me. I wouldn't take no money from them people. I mean, it's about integrity. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tom. It does look like we have, oh, yes, sir, yep, thank you. And we have somebody online. Online, I will get you next. Mary?
Jeff McEwen from Coos Bay, thank you for the opportunity. Just to clarify, I want to be certain, once this grant is given to the county, then the county has complete authority in terms of how that money is spent, is that correct?
More or less. I mean, it has to be towards planning and operationalizing reliable and secure election administration.
And it has to be
in
spent by the end
Coos
of the year.
So those are the stipulations.
So in other words, as long as it's spent for those purposes, then the county does have complete authority, is that correct?
Yes.
To me, it seems confidence in you. Once the money is here, to spend it wisely. I have that confidence in you. I may agree that the source of money isn't ideal, but once the funds are here, you then have control over how they're spent. And so, given that and confidence in Julie Brecky, I can't see a reason not to approve this. If I didn't have confidence in you and your group and Julie, then that would be a whole different matter, but I do. So, the three of you sitting there, you're elected by us because of our confidence in you. Please exercise that. So, again, please be supportive of the ability for all, or I am supportive of the ability for all of you to spend this money wisely.
Thank you. All right, I have Mary online.
Thank you. This is Mary Jedry, Copiale, Oregon. I want to comment first that the United States is in fact a democracy because we consent to be governed. We are also a republic because we elect democratically our leaders to represent us. And it is possible to be both a democracy and a republic. They aren't exclusive. And I also want to say that Julie was democratically elected by a wide majority, and we are therefore meant to, should trust her judgment. That's why we elected her. Zuckerberg, by the way, has not been involved in this particular foundation since 2020, I believe, or since the pandemic. And there's absolutely no logical reason you guys will still approve any purchases made by Julie's recommendations. And it's kind of antithetical when you consider that this is your jobs as commissioners is nonpartisan, to allow your personal ideology and bias to interfere with, you know, a really logical step. I commend Julie for finding this money. We all want secure elections. We also want our workers to be secure. And I'm proud of her for taking this step. And there's literally, even your county council has signed off on this. There's no logical reason to turn down this money. So I would encourage you to do the right thing and vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Oop.
Drew Farmer, Coos Bay again. Becky, I think you mentioned that some other counties have taken these grants. Do you recall how many that was?
I am not aware of how many it is. I know Douglas County approved it last week or the week before. And I know that there are other counties because I do regularly meet with the County Clerks Association, but I'm not sure how many. For this election cycle, it is for rural counties. So I know some of them applied, but were not accepted for this particular one because it was for more rural areas. In 2020, I know that when counties applied, everyone was accepted. Anyone that applied was accepted because the funding at that point was because, and that's across the nation, the funding at that time was because of COVID and the struggles that elections were going to experience running their process during a pandemic.
So this was only for rural counties?
For this particular election, it was.
Okay. So we got 36 counties in Oregon. Rural Oregon Continuum of Care represents 26 rural counties. 36 in total, that means we only have 10 blue, 26 red. And if it's only rural, that would basically be all the ones that voted for Trump. They are conservative counties. And if any of those counties accepted that money, that is a conservative county accepting this money. Has anyone reached out to any of the conservative counties that accepted this money?
I talked with Douglas briefly.
Well, I meant amongst the commissioners to see why they accepted the funds. If these are...
Nope.
Okay.
I haven't.
So, just looking at this from the standpoint of being concerned about the granting agency potentially being involved in voter fraud, And to the extent it matters, I don't trust any feds, so that is what it is. You have an opportunity to take their money so that they don't have the operational capacity to interfere in elections if that is what you believe they did. You can take their money away with no strings attached. You have control over how those funds are spent, and they don't have that funding to be able to exercise what you believe they did. So in this context, it would seem taking their money one way or the other serves your purpose, because if you believe they interfered in the election, they won't have that much more money to do so. That's it.
All right, thank you. Okay, anybody else care to speak on this one? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Ginger Swan from Bandon. There's a couple of things I'd like to say. One is that we have a lot of agreement here within this room. We agree that the county clerk is doing a good job, that everybody here, I don't care what your politics are, we all want a fair election. And the other thing that we want is for the county to actually have more funding, especially in a time that we're looking at funding being a shortfall. So you have an opportunity for the clerk to actually receive funding for equipment that she can keep forever and ever. So as a voter, if you look at the tax rate, if you want to tax me, but you refuse to take $50,000 in a grant, I'm going to question that. You know you have a shortfall. Why didn't you take cash? Now, John and Bob and I, we've had a lot of contracts over the years that we signed together. I don't know that we ever looked at the gift horse in the mouth. I don't remember that, but we did take the money. And I think every county department has taken grants and had to do that to keep their funding. So I'm in favor of this. Support everything Arnie had to say. Separate where the funding is, look at what you can do with it. If you're worried about strings being attached, once you sign a contract, you can't attach strings after that. You can fight the contract. So I would not worry about that. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have comments?
I have.
Commissioner Sweet.
Real quickly, for those of you who haven't been here very long, the lady that was just speaking is Ginger Swan. She came to us. She talks differently. She's from Oklahoma, or one of those states down there. We have great administrators in our public health and mental health program, but it's Ginger that brought it into the newer world. In our time here, she did all kinds of wonderful, wonderful things in running that department. The most visible of which is that we were able to, due to her financial acumen, we were able to move out of an old building, a former hospital in North Bend that was about ready to fall down. You couldn't drink the water. You were afraid to take the elevator upstairs. The stairs weren't safe either, and we ended up in a nice new building. And Ginger, thank you so much for coming back to see us.
Well, I want to thank you too, because I could not have done any of that without having really wonderful commissioners. You supported my department and really worked together. So I appreciate it.
You were easy to work with. We've been dumb not to have supported it.
Okay, do we have any other discussion on this agenda item at this time? I see none, and so I am going to call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Nay. So the motion does not carry by 2-1. All right, moving on to item 2E, the temporary intergovernmental agreement. Excuse me.
Let's hold it.
Let's have order in the room. We have a meeting to continue here, please. Thank you for your respect for the sheriff. Temporary intergovernmental agreement with Coos Bay. Good morning again, Sheriff.
Good morning, Commissioners, again. Thank you. So as part of the, dispatch. Apologies.
We have, keep the hubbub in the room down, please. Thank you.
There is a million, it seems, moving parts with the dispatch consolidation. This is simply an administrative IGA. There's no monetary value to it. Basically, it just says that although we have dispatchers working in Coos Bay as a soft integration approach, that they still fall under the sheriff's office for authority, pay, etc., until such time as a contract is actually approved. So just requesting approving the IGA and for the board to sign.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the attached IGA and board to sign.
I second that motion.
Motion and a second. Discussion on the board?
I should say that this has been talked about for 15, 20 years.
Longer than I've been here.
Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. We're now going to have a central dispatch system. You don't have to call Coos Bay and they have to relate it to the county, or you call the county and they gotta go to Coos Bay or North Bend or whatever. It's going to be one when you call in, which is a huge milestone. Big improvement.
It is. It's officer safety.
Yep.
Instead of having to route or find where other people are, they will know. It's community safety, same thing, like you said, the
Right.
routing of calls. And hopefully it'll be a cost savings.
And
as well.
together with all the upgrades for the towers and everything that people voted on, and it'll phase out this fall. We're in a good shape for police, fire, ambulance, all that.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I'd like to add to that, that our Sheriff Fabrizio has done a wonderful job, another example of his ability to work with other entities to bring us all together. I want to thank you, Gabe. I want to thank the people of the city of Coos Bay for the other end of this, making this possible.
They've been wonderful.
It's good for all of us, and so thanks to both of you.
In the last few weeks, when we were shorthanded for dispatchers, they filled in and took over and were highly cooperative. Can't say enough about Coos Bay and their whole police department, dispatch system, et cetera.
They've been very forward thinking and been great to work with. Thank you.
I not so jokingly said to Gabe, now when you get this done, we're gonna stick you on the schools to see if you can get us down to one school district instead of 6.5.
Okay, any other discussion on this agenda item?
Nope.
Any discussion in the room? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Item 2F, Custom Micro Inc. Computer Aided Dispatch for Consolidation. Sheriff.
Yes, sir. One of the hurdles we have is that we're on separate systems right now. This will bring us back onto the same system with Coos Bay. Not just us, but Mortal Point, Bandon, and Powers as well. Most of the fee here of $87,510 is the installation, but we will be able to cover this with a grant, so nothing from general fund. So,
Mr. Chair, move to approve the contract and sole source findings with CMI for setup in the first year of services in the amount of $87,510 and authorize sheriff to sign.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the board?
Nope.
Any discussion in the room? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Item 2G, request to purchase a vehicle. What kind of vehicle does Captain Sanborn want, Sheriff?
let's see, this is for the county roads position, the public works resource deputy. We funded from roads, so again, not from the general fund. I believe it's an SUV. It's more appropriate to, it doesn't need to be completely off-road because it's going to be county roads. It is part of the state purchasing program. It's all on there as far as where it's from Ron Talkin, Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, Fiat, best price we could find. And the amount is not to exceed $47,864.46.
Yep.
Okay, motion?
Move to approve purchasing a public works resource deputy vehicle amount of $47,864.46.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the board?
This is coming out of the road department funds, it's not part of the general fund.
Yeah.
I further understand that it is, was the grant that we've been talking about just for this, the grant covered a big part of, no, it wasn't, but we got some money, did we not get some grant money to help with paying for this this deputy being assigned to the roads
Oh,
department?
yeah, I'm sorry, yes, correct. So ODOT has a bunch of grant programs, speed enforcement, traffic, CAC belt and everything. But Captain Sanborn contacted one of his contacts there and was actually able to get them to pay for half of the position itself through the grant programs. It's something they've never done before, but it saves the road department half of the cost of the deputy.
Yeah.
That'll be for this year. That'll start in October, because they work on federal, or I guess, an October fiscal year.
Mhm.
But yes, they're gonna pay for half of it.
Well done. Any other discussion on the board?
Love grants.
Any discussion in the room on this agenda item? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And finally, for the sheriff, 2H, request to purchase vehicle. Another one.
Through a grant. This one's fully funded by a grant as well through CENT. They actually had enough funding to get 3 vehicles, but for this board agenda, just requesting not to exceed $60,000 as part of its marijuana enforcement and eradication grant. Again, no general fund dollars,
Okay,
like those grants.
motion?
Move to approve spending authority for sheriff in the amount not to exceed $60,000 to purchase one CENT vehicle, subject to prior approval by county council, which he has done.
And I second that motion.
Motion and a second. Discussion on the board?
No.
Again, I would like to point out that CENT stands for South Coast Interagency Narcotics Team. A team normally consists of more than one person, and it used to. The team used to consist of a representative from many of the cities, well, from Curry County as well as Coos, and from many of the cities in those 2 counties. And correct me if it hasn't changed, unless it's changed, if we're down to having a one person team. And that is our Coos County CENT officer. He does an amazing job. He does get cooperation during certain events from the cities and maybe even Curry County. But mostly he's on his own. And it's a bigger job than that. We all know about what goes on, all the theft that occurs to support drug use, that this is important work. And I would encourage you to plead with if you live in the city, to plead with your city leadership to find funds to help support CENT. If anyone in this county should have a problem finding funds, it is the county itself. And we've been true to this thing for a long time. And I thank you, and I thank the former sheriff, and I thank your people are doing this. But please, urge your cities to help out more. Thank you.
I don't know how you're gonna do that.
Well, I talk to the cities.
Yes. Okay, any other discussion on this agenda item? Any in the room? Nope, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 2I was for county council, but sheriff, it pertains to your department. This is the resolution 2408148L, amending chapter 10 of the Coos County rules to delegate spending authority for the sheriff's office fuel bill. Sheriff, you don't want to come to us every single month, hat in hand, to ask us to pay for the fuel that your deputies have burned.
I like seeing you guys commissioners, but no.
Yeah, okay. Reasonable enough. Any discussion on the board?
Do I need a motion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Move to approve resolution 24-08-148L.
Second.
Very good. Motion and a second. And just for the benefit of the audience, I'll explain that due to county rules regarding expenditures that exceed $10,000 require board approval, and there is no way the sheriff's office will ever have a fuel bill under $10,000. It's consistently up in the $16,000 to $18,000 range right now, and so month after month, the sheriff has to come and ask for these funds, and we go through this perfunctory process that we all know is gonna end the same way. So in this instance, we are bumping the spending authority for this budget item. We'll have a discussion on other departments at another time, but with the effects of inflation over these past few years, particularly, it has become untenable to continue with that $10,000 limit for all departments. So we'll be having that conversation, but today we're going to vote on allowing this extra spending authority for the sheriff's fuel bill. So with that said, is there any discussion in the room? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Thank you, Sheriff. Have a blessed day. Agenda item 2J, letter to the governor, Boehm's offshore wind plan. Commissioner Maine.
Many of the fishermen have come to me asking that questions be asked by the governor to BOEM, Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, about problems with offshore wind. And so I took those questions that they submitted to me and added some more to a letter that hopefully we will submit to the governor, and I will send to other coastal counties about offshore wind problems. What are the potential consequences of this blade failure for the environment? You're talking about the blade failures on the East Coast with fiberglass all over throughout the oceans. Now I find out that there's fiberglass all over the farmers' fields, intermixed with grain crops, etc. Is it possible to mitigate these blade failures? Are blade failures hazard deemed acceptable? There's a management problem for this in the nature of the Pacific Ocean, because it's fairly pristine now. Who will be responsible for managing the emergency events? Who is responsible for the cleanup? At what cost? Are there going to be bonds put up to clean it? Who is responsible for the cleanup, etc.? The BOEM is allowing each windmill now to be its own LLC. So if something goes wrong with it, they declare it bankrupt and go on, leaving all of us to pay for the cleanup. I don't quite understand that one. I thought that, tongue-in-cheek, the feds were supposed to protect us.
Just to clarify, Commissioner, each separate individual windmill will be its own LLC. Is that what you said?
That's what I said.
Thank you.
Yeah. There's radar interference. I didn't realize this. The Coast Guard can't do search and rescue within the windmills because it disrupts all of their radar systems. Same way with aircraft coming into the airport here. They're over 1,000 feet tall, and so they're going to have at least 12 nautical miles or more where there's going to be interference for radar systems, whether it's on land, on water, or in the air. So we want some of these things to be looked at and ask the governor to ask BOEM, because BOEM just ignores us, and see if we can maybe get some answers about this.
Okay. So, do I have a motion?
I move to approve signing and sending the attached letter to Governor Kotek.
Second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on the board?
No?
I have some comments I'd like to make in explaining my position, at least. I most certainly am not categorically against sustainable energy, wind or otherwise. However, the magnitude of this project off our shores is huge, and most ocean windmills are joined to the earth by a big cylinder or legs or something. There are some that are float and they're tethered, but none in oceans as deep as this, none as large as the windmills that are being envisioned off the Oregon coast. This is untested technology. Nothing like it's ever been done before. It's kind of like designing an airplane, and before you test it, you put it into production for carrying passengers. Now, Boeing may do that, but I don't think we want a project of that nature off our coast. If they could slow down and do a program like Maine has, where it's a research program, not implementation of a massive project, I think that would be a better approach. And I think we should encourage or tell our governor about some of the things that we've found that could possibly happen, and give our nation time, or the world time, to better research a project of this magnitude before we implement it. So that's where I am on it, and I'm going to vote to approve the letter.
So this letter doesn't even get into how it affects our fishing fleet, and everybody supplies whatever supplies to the fishing fleet. Doesn't get into whole marine life issues, etc. Just a narrow focus on what I just stated.
Okay.
There's a guy in the back.
Any discussion in the, yes, sir. See you two.
There's three there.
Okay.
Hi again, Dean.
My name's Dean Lundy, and I am dead against the ocean wind farm. It's a disaster. I hope that letter says it. We tried to have public comment at the library in Coos Bay, and it was more like a sales thing.
A brainwash session.
We couldn't even put our comments in. Evidently, it's a disaster environmentally. Everything else, the cables involved. I went to a description there at the beautiful little aquarium there in Charleston, and it was a nightmare. Not only that is like I tried to lean on the poor Commissioner Drew Farmer about the federal government decommissioning the Coast Guard ship Orca. Now we're talking about adding commercial ships coming into the Coos River for cargo container stuff. Adding all this crazy stuff to farm Bitcoin and AI. You know, this is serious electricity, but we don't need it here. What we need is land-based windmills. They're 8 times more efficient, and that is a nightmare. And if the feds want us to have renewable energy, let's do it on land where we can control it, paint one blade black, you know, to keep the birds from getting hit. We've been reading about this stuff. And to decommission a steel ship, the Orca, and all the crew in the bay when trying to bring in new commerce into the bay. I mean, it's criminal. We should stop the presses right now on the ocean. Take their money, you know, for the 3 martini lunches, but don't ever let them put these things offshore there. It's just too studied,
proven.
And they didn't. We had our 3-minute little elevator talk set up. The renewable energy stuff completely absolves them of the strikes of the whale and the mammal. There's a congressional law that says you cannot harm migrating mammals, but that federal law is completely devoid for the renewable energy, which is baloney, because we have mammals that travel, you know, these calving whales that travel the coast. That's all I have to say about it.
You know, Dean, thank you for your comments there, Dean. As they pertained to the comparison between land-based wind, as bad as it is, and floating sea-based wind, the problem with land-based wind from the perspective of those advocating for the sea-based, particularly on the manufacturer side, is that it's just not nearly as profitable. There's so much more boondoggle money to be made by installing these things offshore. And that will end up always being our money, folks.
It's all about federal subsidies
Make no
for these
mistake
windmills.
about that. Everybody that I've seen, I would say 90% of the people I've seen advocating for this wind project are in one way or another getting paid. And that pretty much clarifies everything. Great. Any other discussion in the room on this agenda item? I see Marty. Marty? Rob, you want to go first? Okay, I see you all, you'll all get a chance.
He's gonna be cleaning.
Okay.
First off, I'm upset. I didn't get any of these three martini lunches. I mean, I don't know.
Neither did I. I met with RWE, which is the second largest wind company in the world, twice.
Yeah.
I paid for my own coffee.
Damn. You know, if we're gonna go on the grift, I mean, we gotta get some better deals going here. No, this is one of the great issues that I love. We've been doing protests, we've been doing rallies, opposing this wind turbine project, and we had about a dozen people in Brookings, and this is the wonderful thing. We had people from the left, we had people from the right, we had people from in between, all showing up opposing this, and it was wonderful to work with a lot of people that normally I'm arguing with. You know, the last issue could have been a good example of this. This one is better, but I do have a little advice if you're doing this letter, and this is this thing that has been just absolutely infuriating me. We've got a couple of representatives, and I'm going to name them, David Brock Smith and Court Boyce, who were originally for these projects. HB 3375, anyone who reads it can see that was a bill that was designed to plan this project, and it even set a goal of 30 gigawatts coming off the ocean by 2030. Kind of like Agenda 2030, but that's a conspiracy, so I won't go into that. And so these guys were for it until they were against it. You know, they were all for it in Salem, then they came back here and realized we were all against it, and they became against it. But here's the thing, on the Coastal Caucus, and I believe Arnie was on the Coastal Caucus as well, not one letter from the Coastal Caucus, not one letter from these senators has actually said, we want this project stopped. Not one single one. You can read them. I'll give you $100. You can find the words, this should be stopped. These projects should be stopped. They keep telling us that they're concerned, and they're concerned with our concerns. However, they go on continuing as if this project was going to go through. Bob, if you write this letter, would you please put in there somewhere that you believe that most of the people of this county think this project should just be stopped. And by the way, do you think it's bad? It's even worse than you think, because one of the things they're not talking about is the conversion plant that they're going to have to put in Coos Bay. That's going to, from converting the energy from AC to DC, they're going to have to pull water from the ocean. Then they add chemicals to this water, and they heat it up to 90 degrees, and then they pour it back into the ocean. Chemicals and all. Yeah, they filter it a little bit, up to 5 microns, but there's still elements of this chemical going into the water that's been heated. And what's been the biggest argument from environmentalists? The heating of the oceans. This is nuts. This is just nuts to me. And then on top of that, they're not talking about the second phase of this plant. Where are they going to get all this land for that energy? They're going to bring in all of those transporting mechanisms, the cables to do this. Where are they going to get that land? They've already started eminent domain process in New Jersey and other places in on the East Coast. That to me is the bigger threat of this project, is that it's going to cost some of us some of our land, and we're not gonna have a damn choice about it. So please, in the letter, let them know they need to stop it. Thank you. Clear language.
Thank you. Okay, Marty, and then I'll get you, Chip.
I offered to
yes.
let him go first, but he was like, no, that's okay. So, anyway, Marty Kurt, Bandon, Oregon, I firmly approve of this letter. You know, and one thing I'd like to say is if you go to oawt.org, OregoniansAgainstWindTurbines.org, you can find out how to go to rallies, how to, you know, all the articles about what's going on. It has copies of both the measures in Coos County and Curry County on there. It's a website where you can find out more information about what is going on with the wind turbines off the coast. And so basically, you are absolutely correct when it comes to it screws with weather radar, because the way weather radar works and the way pilot radar works is that it uses the Doppler effect. And the Doppler effect is like, you know, you hear a train go by, it goes, same thing with winds in storms. They go by and the radar is like going, okay, this is getting closer to us, therefore it's a wind that's moving this way or moving that way. It shows up on like your national NOAA weather maps as like greens and yellows and reds. The problem is when I used to be a pilot in Oakland, California, out by Travis Air Force Base, they had a bunch of huge wind turbines. All those wind turbines, when they're turning, look like tornadoes or look like huge storm cells, when it could be the clearest day in the world. The problem is your weather radar in your plane says, there's a thunderstorm over here that's really severe, don't go in that direction. Now let's say you're trying to use that radar to go find somebody lost at sea. All of a sudden now, you have this huge swath of, I can't see into this, I can't see past this, because those turning blades look exactly like Doppler radar, like a huge storm. So it screws with weather radar and most radar systems anyway. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that, and also tell everybody about oawt.org, where you can get more information about wind turbines and how you can help try to combat this. The government's trying to jam it down our throats. I went to the listening sessions, which were not listening sessions. They did not listen to us. They basically, the listening sessions were listen to our propaganda. And then they said, oh, by the way, we're not gonna get the EPA involved, and we're not gonna do an environmental impact study. And well, yeah, there's migrating whales, and yes, there's short-tailed albatross, and well, yes, there could be salmon, and yes, there could be seals, and you know, they could probably all get killed. Oh, and crabs really love electric cables, and they just sit on them until they die. But we're not concerned about that because, you know, green energy, and that's all I have to say.
Right. Bone standard answer on all those is minimal impact.
Minimal impact.
Yes.
Talk to the people on the
Every
East Coast.
time they make a determination, it's minimal impact.
Well, that's the standard answer. They're basically, that answer is, I don't have to listen to you. And I'm like, well, maybe you will at some point. Anyway, thank you for my.
Thank you, Chip.
Sorry, I'm a little slow. Chip Delaria, Emergency Manager for the county. I'd like to say, for the record, personally, I am a huge proponent of energy that is, you know, other than hydrocarbons. I'm personally rooting for hydrogen. However, I would be remiss as emergency manager if I didn't call into question just exactly what happens to structures like these during an earthquake. And I have an answer for that. But first, I'd like to state that if we do have a Cascadia-style event, an earthquake of a 7, 8, 9 magnitude, we won't have any bridges. Which means that we will have to rely on our God-given natural harbor to bring things in and out until we can stabilize and start getting airplanes in and out of the county. We can't do that if we have 200 to 300 feet worth of bits and pieces of debris floating around in the ocean. So my question to the governor, and therefore to the people putting this project in, is what is the resilience for those particular structures, and what happens to those structures when they're no longer rooted to the ground when they enter the ocean? Just a question.
Very good, thank you. Nancy?
So I just had a concern, because yesterday I heard that, some people were in like cash and carry and bought all these sodas, right, and all that. And that they were going out to a ship or a barge or whatever's out in our ocean doing surveys already for these windmills, is what I heard yesterday. So I was just kind of upset about that, like they're just doing it no matter what we think or feel or whatever, so.
Thank you.
Last week, or was it 2 weeks ago, BOM announced the leasing process has started.
Well, they're already out there by what I found out yesterday.
Yeah, your assessment is correct in my view, Nancy, that the federal government and the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management does not care what the local sentiment is. And so I have maintained for well over a year now that that even though they don't care, there will come a point when they do care, and it will be when they start losing money because of the opposition of the vast majority of the people of this county. We don't want it. We don't want them here. We don't believe them. We don't trust them. And everyone who's involved in it is out to make to carve a fat hog on the backs of our grandchildren in the form of printed money. So that's the goal, and you're right, they don't care, but they will. Anyone else? Yes, Drew.
Third time, Drew Farmer, Coos Bay.
Quite a campaign you've got going today there, Drew.
There's a couple things to ask, couple things to say. This one, pretty easy. If you have the opportunity, or if it needs to go in a follow-up letter, something to do with the impact on the fishing industry, adding it to the letter. I know the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers is interested in how this will impact the fishing industry because they intend to go along party lines with the fishing industry. That could be a substantial aid. The Confederated Tribes wants to know how those underwater lines are going to impact the fish. Few entities are as good at fighting the feds as tribes are, so knowing what that'll do and what that impact will be is valuable. I'd ask that you also, when you send your letter, include the Oregon Military Department. Portion of the land already had to be excluded. The Navy identified it as interfering with their operations. Including something to do with Oregon's military department could be beneficial. And the last component I would like to see added is, if it's not already there, I didn't hear it mentioned, is what the impact on the international shipping terminal, if it were to come through, would be by these turbines. So, things to consider.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments in the room? All right. Having heard all the commentary in the room, are there addenda or changes that you would care to make to the letter to pre-authorize in the context of this vote, Commissioner Main?
I don't think so. We included the military, Coast Guard, etc. I was thinking of Rob Taylor's comment. I don't believe we have Rob Taylor's comment about we just don't want it. We could add that.
Okay. So some addition to indicate the rejection of this idea on the part of the people of Coos County. So, but a motion.
I'm reluctant to make that addition.
Yeah, I am too, because I want questions asked, not just a statement.
Yeah, I think
okay.
Bob brings up scientific points, and we don't like it isn't a good way to start a conversation.
Okay, all right.
First,
fair enough.
We just asked for a 50-year environmental impact report. It's a short time in environmental.
Yeah, I know, but some years ago, U.S. Congress passed that major energy facilities, pipelines, don't have to conform to EPA. including this one. They're
Okay,
exempted.
so it sounds like maybe we don't have a basis to make any or authorize any changes or additions to the letter, and so let's call a motion on the letter as it is written.
Let me get to that. I move we approve the signing and sending of the letter attached to our agenda item to Governor Kotek.
A second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? We had quite a bit of discussion before a motion. My apology for that breach of protocol, but it all works out the same in the wash, doesn't
I
it?
was really confused.
Yes,
But
I'm
it's
sure you
normal
were. I
state,
saw
so
that.
no one
I was
knows the
noting that
difference.
as I was looking at you on my monitor. He looks confused. Okay, no other discussion in the room, then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, move to accept the consent calendar.
Before we move to the consent calendar, Commissioner, we have a late agenda item. May I have a motion to accept the late agenda item?
So moved.
Let's just let Jessica sit there a little longer. Oh, go ahead and second.
She's already standing, Commissioner.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Late agenda item, Palouse Creek Tidegate project on North Bay Road.
Do you guys have a copy?
Good. No, we do not.
I got one, I think.
I got one.
I only
Yeah.
have the cover sheet.
I have it.
Thank you, Jessica.
The statement of
Oh, I
intent's
guess I
what you're
did have
talking
that.
about,
It
right?
wasn't- Okay, yeah.
You're talking about the statement of intent?
Yes, statement
All
of
right.
Yeah,
intent.
I
Very
got
good.
it.
So currently, Hughes Watershed and Haynes Drainage District are working on, out at Palouse, Slim, Tidegate, they're working on really upgrading the Tidegate. They're gonna pull that Tidegate off of our bridge currently, which is a benefit for us, but they are needing additional right of way. So Greg Stone is willing to transfer ownership of a portion of his property to Coos County Road Department as additional right of way on North Bay Road
At no cost.
at no cost. And so there's just a statement of an intent, and that's just what I'm looking for approval and signature on. And it just, after we sign that, then, I believe he will meet Mike Dago out there, and they will get it all laid out on what will be transferred to the department, and then, they will cite over a quitclaim deed that will be.
So you'll bring that back later, okay.
I move we approve and sign a statement of intent to transfer ownership of a portion of property owned by Greg L. and Pemmy S. Stone to Coos County as additional road right-of-way for the purpose of constructing a new Tidegate project, a new Tidegate.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion.
Would you please add to authorize the chair to sign? There's only one signature.
Oh, yeah, and authorize the chair to sign.
And authorize the chair to sign.
I second on the adjustment.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on this?
No, but similarly, we have Tidegate failure down on North Bank at 7 Mile too. The landowners have contacted me about that, very upset that it's leaking through and destroying their farmland. So we need to do something with that too.
We're currently looking to get some divers in.
For that piece?
We
Oh,
just got a
yeah.
quote.
Apparently one of the landowners dove down, looked at it, it was in bad shape, cut his hand, had to have 7 stitches. So be careful of the jagged metal down there.
Okay. All right. Discussion on this agenda item. Yes, Richard.
I'd like to I live out Northwood Drive, at House. But I'd like to clarify what's going on. They're driving, when they made a piling, obviously to put in a new Tidegate there. And then there's, I thought there would be a larger, more substantial Tidegate across North Bay itself. So I'm curious as to what, what's happening in the first stage, and then what's going to be happening later.
Hughes Watershed and Hughes Drainage District are the ones actually doing the project, so that would be a question for them. We're just concerned with the road right of way and what, they have to access that tight.
So how is How's it going to impact the road right of way, which I assume is North Bay Drive?
They're just looking to get additional right of way so they can go and work and maintain that existing.
They're just gonna widen the existing one and not change the road itself.
Yeah, there was nothing to do with the road. It's just giving them access. Greg Stone is a little bit uneasy on allowing people to access that through his property.
With the piling they have now driven is to make the tide gate essentially into his property.
That would be a question for Coos Watershed. I don't know
Right.
the information on the project. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments in the room?
Again, the benefit to us is that this replaces a tide gate that currently is hung from one of our bridges. And which,
You know, I want to see it happen.
as she said, Richard, it is not our project.
We're just trying to help them
Yes.
get done with the project.
All right, very good. Okay, seeing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Very good, thank you very much, Jessica.
Thank you.
Consent calendar.
Move to approve.
I got a motion to approve the
Second.
consent calendar and a second. Any discussion on the consent calendar? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Commissioners' reports.
Hey, I thought that sounded
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
Hang on.
We're getting there. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Sweet?
Okay, I'll start. I'll be brief. I was really pleased with what the sheriff brought us today. We had a work session on that last week, I believe. Very productive work session, and again, we ended up with two governments partnering, so we eliminate some duplication of services or having two offices when one will do. And so thanks again to our sheriff and to the city of Coos Bay for that. Fair Board met a week ago yesterday evening, I believe it was. We don't have all the numbers in, but by most measures, it was a very successful fair. In times past, the county has used tax dollars to support the fair. That has not happened since we've been here. Other than we did get some money from the federal government but local money that we use to upgrade the fair facilities. The response to that has been very, very good to that upgrade. First blush, it appears as though the fair was in the black by quite a bit, $200,000. So that's good. It shows that government agencies can work and support themselves. I like that. I've been involved with, again, the County Forest Trust lands. I think I've talked about this before. These are lands that the counties deeded over years ago, decades ago, to the state to manage for them. The state had taken them, or the counties had received them due to non-payment of taxes. We didn't have the money to reforest. The state did. The agreement was they would keep 1/3 about of the revenues for managing the forest. They would take those revenues at the time of harvest and then share the 2/3 with the county. And over the years, that has kind of shrunk until where it's less than that. Our governor recognized that, there's a new management plan forthcoming, would further reduce harvest on the forests. That wasn't the issue. We were not, but the governor is striving to make counties and other local governments whole, replace the revenues that we had received. I find it, I really don't like that idea. We could pay our own way, but we're not going to be able to pay our own way, so we will at least, if we are able to it will require legislation to implement this effort at least we will not be losing money that we currently get. And and because actually under this new management plan, we will be eligible for more harvest on the counties that, or on the lands that Coos County has in this program. And we could actually end up getting about $500,000 a year if what we're talking about is implemented by the legislature, as opposed to, Bob, how much have we, I think $43 since I've been a commissioner in 12 years. So $43 in 12 years plus, versus the opportunity of $500,000 a year going ahead. Don't hold your breath, but that's, hopefully we might get that done. I have the nice fortune of being asked to be a director on a foundation that started in Coos Bay several years ago, funded by sale of the timberlands that the Al Pierce Company once owned. The sole heir to that fortune wanted to do something to honor her father, Mr. Pierce, and started a foundation. Funded it with $40 million. Could have kept it herself. Instead, gave it, and the foundation does its work in western Douglas, all of Coos, and all of Curry County, the areas in which Mr. Pierce had operations. It's grant season, and so the board visited with people making grants here in the Coquille area, the library next door. You should see what they're doing over there. It's just amazing. The 100-acre trail that the city of Coquille has made up in the woods off in this direction. A beautiful recreational place for hiking and for mountain bike riding. And then the Sawduster Theater were the three applicants. And there's people doing good work, and we appreciate it. And I'm honored to be involved with this foundation that supports endeavors like ones I've just mentioned. And that's all I have.
Very good. Commissioner Lee?
2 Saturdays ago now, I was pleased to go to the OIMB 100-year celebration. It was very informative. We started at, 8:30, I believe, and got out of there a little after noon. It's very interesting. Was a guest speaker out at the Institute in Charleston I talked about the director, very modest person. When he called me one day, Dr. Young?
I was talking to him,
Oh.
Sorry.
Well, Dr. Young is very modest, and he called me one day and said, I'd like to come see you in the office. Okay. I was telling everybody this. He gets here and he says, I have this dream. I want to have a big center for marine life, and so everybody can come and view it and get excited about marine biology and all that stuff. He said, we'll have overnights for kids and that sort of thing. And I said, oh, you mean like Monterey or Newport? And he said, oh, even better. Of course. And so I said, cool. And so the county supported him in that. And a couple of years later, I get another call. I'd like to come see you. And I thought, wonder what he's up to now. Sure enough, now we have a brand new research vessel. The one he was talking that they had before, I told him, I wouldn't even go out in the bay in that thing, let alone out in the ocean. I get to see it in progress several times and look at it when it's finished. You may not know it has in it, to stabilize it, has this big gyro in it, gyroscope. Very interesting piece of equipment that keeps it from rolling back and forth all the time. So I explained that to everybody, but he said, well, everybody had a hand in this. And I said, no, without you, Dr. Young, I call him Dr. Craig, it wouldn't happen. So it was amazing. And we are known around the world for this OIMB, the entire world. It is really a gem.
Where was the boat built?
Huh?
Where is the boat built?
In downtown
China?
Charleston.
Oh, okay.
Right here. Yep.
China. That's
Go ahead.
funny. So,
Oh, I forgot one thing.
yeah.
Last Sunday, went fishing, salmon fishing with some friends, and actually caught salmon.
Oh, really?
That was the highlight of the weekend.
Nice. All right. With that, let's move on into citizen comments. Do we have the sheet? I'll get it. It's fine. You know Phil's on it. You know Phil's at the top of it.
Yeah.
That's right. But you don't know if he's going to act on it or not. That's the thing. He's always got a surprise up his sleeve. Phil Thompson. And here he comes.
And he's still coming. And it's rounding the bend. Headed towards the finish line. Oops. Oh, no, it's gonna make it. Gonna make it. Good, Phil.
Phil Thompson, Coos Bay. I actually got a pretty good lesson today. Heard David Jennings, Mr. Senator, ex-Senator Roebling, the guy, I'm not supposed to turn around and look, but the guy with the beard and stuff back there. And one other guy. To me, they put on the most best speech or debate, whatever you want to call it, in favor of accepting that grant. And in defense of our clerk, I would have to say, I've been here longer than Bob attended the meetings. He was an assessor when I started. I think today, and Bob, you know it, I supported you for probably over 15 years. I think today you guys made one of the biggest boo-boos I've ever seen in my life. And it's all because of the vision in our country. I don't think you guys had a justifiable reason to turn down that grant. No way. I just don't see how anyone that's really being fair could turn down that grant. We're gonna have to get rid of the division. You should get rid of that red tie. I promise I won't talk about Democratic stuff. If you want to, for the rest of the thing till election. But you're part of the reason, see? And it don't matter whether you're gonna talk about Republicans or what. We don't need it. It's tearing our country apart. So, I think that's partly the reason this grant didn't pass. And you're wrong, guys. And that's all I got to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil. David James.
I pass.
David passes. Natalie Ronker.
I pass.
All right. Bob Money? Moore.
Robert Moore, Coos State. I'm gonna follow up on his comments, and I'm addressing this to both Commissioners Taylor and Maine. I found your vote on the elections office grant to be both hypocritical and self-serving. There's not a meeting, a commissioners meeting that I've been to in any recent time in which I didn't hear just the dire straits financially that this county is facing and the trouble that we're having finding enough money to run our operations. Here you had an opportunity for a grant that had no conditions on it other than producing receipts, and that was approved by your county council. This was money that would definitely have helped out, and you turned it down. I found that to be hypocritical, that you overlooked the very thing that you constantly are talking about. And then on top of that, to me, the self-serving part has to do with, lost my train of thought.
what was self-serving? Let's see. I had this all planned out, I lost my train of thought. I'll just leave it at that. I maintain my point that I find you both hypocritical and self-serving on this, and that's it.
Okay. Richard Kuznitsky.
Okay, I'm Richard Kuznitsky from Coos County, and I want to basically say the same thing that Bob has said, that if you guys have voted down to not take this grant money, I really don't want to hear from you about voter integrity or anything. We have no standing in that, and it's monumentally hypocritical for you to turn down that money. You know, there were no strings attached. The string is, you got this money to do something, do it. And, you know, anyway, that's it. It's hypocrisy, and I really don't want to hear from you guys about voter integrity anymore.
Okay, Martha Greger.
Martha Greger, North Bend. Just wanted to emphasize what the previous speakers did. Bob Mayen is up for re-election. It's amazing that you would vote against something that would secure voting rights and our integrity of our voting process, approved by our county council, no strings attached. Makes me wonder if you don't want, you know, any more security for our votes. That's all my comment is.
Okay. Marty Kurt.
And once again, Marty Kurtz, Bandon, Oregon. Let me reiterate, I have no problem with our county elections workers. I think Lark and Sarah are doing a wonderful job. I don't have any personal animosity against our current county clerk, but I do have an issue with the clerk's policies in that I can't prove one way or the other. I can't say anything bad about the 2020 election. I can't say anything good about the 2020 election, because when I asked for information to confirm the findings of the 2020 election, I just wanted ballot images, I wanted a CVR, I wanted the web activity report and the the election activity log and the web activity log. The data they gave me after long fights, and the ballot images was a long fight, the data they gave me was not usable. It was garbage, meaning I could not prove it, I could not disprove it. If you truly think there is transparency and everything is fair and above the board, why would you fight so hard to keep that information away from me? If you think there's something wrong with the methodology I use or the analytics I use or how I do it, I will show you the computer programs I use. I will show you the data I use. I will say, if you find something wrong, I will admit to it. I will say, mea culpa, I made a mistake. But if you don't allow me to prove or disprove it, that means there's something wrong, and that's my big complaint. And that's all I have to say. Have a great week.
All right, thank you. Kay Marino. No Kay Marino. Cindy Rawlings. No Cindy.
I spoke earlier.
Okay. Nick Forrest. Katie is gone. So Rob, you had your hand up, and anyone else who wants to speak, we'll give you a chance.
Rob Taylor from Coos County. I think you made the right decision. And there's always going to be division since this country was a country. We've been divided on a lot of issues. That's why we fought a civil war. A lot of issues. And for anyone to think that it's a bad thing, it's a good thing that we have divisions, because once again, that's how we get to the better decisions. One thing that I do have to say is, after going through the process of working on submitting an argument for the advisory question, I realized some problems with Article 8 concerning the elections. We have an elections board, But I remember, and I think it was Debbie Heller who stopped having the election boards because there was no interest in it. I'm willing to bet that has changed since 2020. And I'm willing to bet you'd be able to find all kinds of people to volunteer, but it's in your county code. In your county code, there's supposed to be an elections board, and I don't know how you get appointed to a board that doesn't seem to exist anymore. But they determine certain dates that, and this is according to your county code, they consider certain dates, and I also would ask that we change the dates to conform to the state dates, because most people don't know that the county itself has different dates. And so with that, it draws a little bit of problem. We were going by what the Secretary of State was telling us, but at no point did the Secretary of State say, oh, and by the way, some of the counties might have different dates. And we didn't know that until the day that they were allowing it, but the county had already passed its date of submissions. And so once you find that out, you can't go backwards. But if there was some conformity between the county dates and the Secretary of State dates, that would be great. And we need to decide whether we're gonna have this non-existent, existent elections board or not. And that's something you guys are gonna have to figure out. Article 8. Thank you.
Very good, thank you, Rob, and I'll just follow up on that and say that the discussion over your inability to submit a statement in support of the wind energy measure on the ballot, that whole discussion and the way that developed and the inability to get that statement in has the side benefit of bringing to light this elections board, which is referenced throughout the county code or in a number of places. So yeah, we'll definitely be looking at that. So thank you for that. Yes, ma'am.
The last one.
Well, you never know. There might be 10 others behind you.
Karen Crouch, Lakeside. I've been coming to these meetings the last couple months since I've been retired, and I think it was very disturbing today that the two of you came in already with your mindset on how you were gonna vote, and we heard over an hour of public comments, and I don't think you really considered them. And I do agree with the other woman that spoke. Bob, you're running for an election. You're supposed to be protecting the rights of everyone. So because you had a personal opinion against this grant, you are hurting the county.
It wasn't a personal opinion, it's what I read.
But it was your personal opinion that you shared. It was your personal opinion. Okay, not shared by everyone in this room, not even the majority of this room. It's like you didn't want to hear any opposition. Mr. Roblin came, I don't know whether you came down for this, but he made great points. And it was just like either went right over your head or you were just firm. I don't want to use these people's money. We can use their money, but it's too late now.
Great. Yeah, Mary?
Mary Murphy Allegheny, apparently you do not understand that we will save way more than $50,000 by going to hand counting. And also, I forgot to add earlier, Arnie, that would solve all the problems that you said. I'm sure you remember going to our precincts. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else care to have a comment? Yes, Tom.
Tom Brown, Coos Bay, and I would just like to thank you for showing some integrity by not allowing that.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Natalie Ranker, and I do not feel that there was a great deal of integrity involved here. You could have, it was approved by the council. You could have had the council go through the contract. The contract could have been approved and there would have been no other strings attached. And yet you have shorted this county $50,000.
All right. Anyone else care to have a comment? Yep,
I'd
here
feel
it comes.
bad if I didn't smoke.
Yep, all right.
We don't want you to feel bad. I didn't know, Elmer Yardley from North Bend. I didn't know this 50,000 grant for nothing. I always knew, and my dad told me, you never get anything for free. So I'm thinking maybe that's 50. And of course, I'm gonna feel safe going in there if they would have had that machine. But what happens the rest of the 11 months when there's no machine in the courtroom? Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Any other comments that need to be tendered today? All right. Seeing none, thank you all for being here. We're adjourned.